The Ouya, a necessity for gracious living.
Oh yeah!
For years in the realm of home consoles, we were faced with offerings from just the same three companies. Microsoft with their Xbox, Sony with their PlayStation, and Nintendo with their Nintendo. At the dawn of the 2010s though, the winds of change appeared to be blowing, as gamers would finally have an opportunity to back a different horse. I'm referring to the now infamous Ouya. A video game console that ran on the Android operating system developed by Ouya Incorporated. The console was designed to be a breath of fresh air, presenting an affordable alternative to traditional video game systems and being marketed as an open platform for developers to easily create and publish games for the system. While ambitious, it sounded like a promising concept, so why was the Ouya not wildly successful? And even more alarmingly, why did the company go entirely out of business in 2015? Let's examine the Ouya's traumatic history today, its games, and how this once innovative sounding idea led to disaster.
I am Lady Decade, and this is why the Ouya failed.
The Ouya was first announced on the 3rd of July 2012 and led by a lady named Julie Ehrman, the Chief Executive Officer of Santa Monica, California-based Boxer 8 Incorporated, the company that would later rebrand itself as Ouya Incorporated. If people pledged $99 to the product's crowdfunding campaign, they could land their own Ouya at launch. But that's not all. An extra incentive was in place where the first 1,000 backers could get an early bird deal on the console at a slightly reduced price of $95. In a dream start for the conceptual product, the Kickstarter fundraising goal was hit in just 8 hours. Ouya fever was sweeping the information superhighway. Past these first 8 hours, fundraising continued to increase, and more models were made available at various funding levels. In fact, the Ouya once held the world record for the best first day performance of any project hosted on the website. Another crazy stat is that if you look at the first 24 hours in which Ouya began backing, it actually turned out that someone backed the Ouya once every 5.59 seconds that day.
Absolute madness.
Building on its accolades, the Ouya was also the 8th project in Kickstarter history to raise over $1 million in funds and was by far the fastest project in history to do so.
Oh yeah!
When all this was said and done, the campaign raised an astonishing $8.6 million, over 900% of their original goal. So the future of the Ouya was looking bright indeed. Despite this success, like anything related to gaming, a group of detractors was already forming. Several vocal critics of the project began to surface. Many gaming community members were skeptical that this new company could even deliver the Ouya product. On the 12th of July 2012, PC Magazine's Sasha Sagan ran an opinion editorial titled "Why Kickstarter's Ouya Looks Like a Scam," which was critical not only of the Ouya, but all Kickstarter-funded hardware projects. In this article they stated, "The entirely imaginary Ouya appears to be the latest of many Kickstarter tech projects to attract a long line of suckers. It's like a world full of wimpies. They'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today."
Scathing.
Some speculation regarding the system was more positive on the other hand, with Unreality magazine defending the Ouya, stating, "A scam implies some sort of intentionally illegal deceit. Tapping multiple investors from multiple sources isn't a scam. It's not even illegal. It's business." Despite the mixed speculation before the launch, the system was finally finished and shipped to backers by March of 2013. This was all before the retail launch, which was set to take place in June 2013. During this backers-only period for the system, Engadget had the opportunity to review this version of the system. Engadget praised the system's low cost and ease of hacking. However, they reported issues with the system's controller, stating that the buttons sometimes got got stuck beneath the plating and that the right analog stick would snag too. A lag was also reported between the controller and the console when playing games, so not everything was coming up Milhouse. A similar report was also issued by The Verge, which also questioned the controller's build quality. They also stated that the Ouya isn't a viable gaming platform, a good console, or even a nice TV interface.
Harsh.
By June 2013, the Ouya was ready for its retail launch and was sold to the general public at $99. Engadget reviewed the retail version of the Ouya and reported a largely improved experience compared to what they had with their pre-release unit. Improvements to the gamepad were huge, and they found that the user interface had been cleaned up and sped up. Engadget concluded that their latest experience with the Android-based gaming device left them optimistic, and that the company was taking customer feedback seriously. Digital Trends called the final retail copy of the console a device with a lot of potential built with love, and called the design a sleek and cool looking cube filled with gaming goodness. The mostly positive review cited it had a lot of potential for the future, but was tempered by noting deficiencies in the performance and pointing out that the Ouya won't be able to compete with the big three console makers on performance. They said it must instead rely on carving out its own market niche. On the other hand, Extreme Tech found the Ouya had several serious faults. They mentioned the subpar controller, the connectivity issues, and games which worked flawlessly on smartphones but stuttered on the console. Also, they remarked there aren't enough worthwhile games to play.
Not enough people were saying, "Ooh yeah," about the Ouya.
When July of 2013 came around, Ouya announced the Free the Games Fund, which was supposed to support developers to make exclusive games for the system, as after all, what is a games console without exclusives? I suppose modern hardware like the PS5 and Xbox Series X, but I digress. As time progressed and October rolled around that same year, the company also announced plans to release a new iteration of the console for 2014. The improved Ouya would feature an enhanced controller, double the storage space, and better Wi-Fi capabilities, but would this be enough for things to start coming up Milhouse for the Android-based device? Well, no, not quite. Past this point, Ouya received an investment of $10 million from the giant Chinese e-commerce company Alibaba, with the possibility of incorporating some of Ouya's technology into Alibaba's set-top box. But Ouya was trying to sell their company by April of that same year due to debt management problems. By July 2015, Ouya had been acquired by Razer Incorporated, a global gaming hardware manufacturing company founded by a Singaporean entrepreneur. Razer Inc. acquired Ouya's employees and its gaming content library. However, the Ouya hardware was discontinued as the deal, for some reason, didn't include any hardware assets. The goal for the Ouya brand name was for it to live on as a standalone gaming publisher for Android TV and Android-based TV consoles. The technical team and developer relations personnel behind Ouya joined the software team of Razer, which developed its own game platform, the Forge TV. The Forge TV 2 was discontinued though by the time 2016 rolled around. 3 years on the 21st of May 2019, Razer released a statement which announced that online accounts and services would be discontinued on the 25th of June 2019. The Ouya would reportedly sell around 200,000 units throughout its lifetime. Still, the game sales for the hardware were abysmal. Towerfall, the best-selling Ouya game of all time, only shifted 7,000 digital copies on the system, which is pretty appalling.
But if you purchase the Ouya, what would you get?
The Ouya sits with its curved edge on the ground and its square face flat, strangely facing the air. The on-off button is located atop the system, in the middle of the device. The back of the device features a power hole.
I don't know. I think that's a bit dodgy, mate.
A USB and a micro USB slot, and an Ethernet cable slot if you fancy playing the Ouya in, I don't know, Cuba. or somewhere else remote. On top of all of this, the slot also features an HDMI slot, making it pretty futuristic. Regarding the controller, I think it feels reasonably nice, and design-wise it reminds me of a lot of the Nintendo Wii U Pro controller. The device features a D-pad, 2 analog sticks, 4 shoulder trigger buttons, and 4 buttons on the right that spell out the word Ouya.
Oh yeah!
I thought that was actually quite a nice little touch, and better than the randomness of, you know, A, B, Y, and X. I personally feel this is, well, a lovely controller, which feels great in my smooth lady hands. As already mentioned, all games on the system are acquired digitally, and in many cases at a price. One of the beautiful things about the Ouya though, and other Android devices, is that in most cases you got to try before you buy, as demo versions were available to play most games before purchase. This gave gamers a good indication of what they wanted to play without spending any money first. Also, with the thousands of games available on the system, it could be fun to browse through the titles and try out random stuff. The system has that same experimental indie charm to it, where if you go digging, in many cases you never know what you'll find. Back in the day we downloaded these to ours, for example, so let's try some out. Beast Boxing Turbo is a charming little love letter to the Punch-Out series of games by Nintendo. This first-person boxing title is artfully designed and plays with a similar fighting rhythm mechanic to other games. The game is fast-paced, fun, looks great, and features 12 gimmicky opponents to beat the living buggery out of. This is a fun little game and should be available on Steam. Another game I got a lot of fun out of was Wizorb, a game along with Arkanoid, which would fit nicely into the breakout genre. This game features a nice difference because it takes place in a medieval fantasy setting, which gives the game a different feel. You play as a wizard and cast spells, which act as the equivalent of the ball in this game. Like on many Android devices, the system is fairly infested with runner-style games, such as BIT.TRIP Runner and Temple Run, which Nintendo also decided to cash in on when they published Super Mario Run for mobile a few years back. We also have Wind Up Night, not to be confused with Rocket Knight Adventures, Shovel Knight, Clockwork Knight, Symphony of the Night, or Nights into Dreams. Don't you just love games with the word night in them? This is an excellent little game within the runner genre and plays quite well. I particularly like the 2.5D graphical style, which reminds me of what Klonoa looks like. Another game of this genre on the platform is Cannibalt 3D. Just like many runner games, this game is just as addictive. With its randomly generated levels, there is endless fun to be had. Polarity is a first-person puzzle game which graphically reminds me of watching the Tron movie. This game's main mechanic is switching between red and blue energy to solve various puzzles. Apparently this brain-teasing game was also an actual Ouya exclusive, so it was for proud owners of the Ouya like myself. This is a fun game that rewards you for taking your time. Next, I bring Deep Dungeons of Doom, a simplistic game with RPG battle mechanics. In this game you attack or defend. The game features time-based combat where you carefully balance these two paradigms. You descend from floor to floor, defeating enemies and slaying monsters as you progress. Another easy time killer is Nimble Quest, a game where you lead a conga line of heroes to glory as you defeat hordes of enemies. This game is very much like Snake for the Nokia 3210, with added RPG elements. And come to think of it, who didn't enjoy Snake? So if someone had told me in the 90s that I could play a game that was a mix of Snake and Final Fantasy, I would have been sold. Because we love knights so much in this video, I now present to you Nightmare Tower, an arcade-style launching game where you play as a knight with a rocket as you propel your way up a tower by swiping your swords through hundreds of monsters as they appear on screen. The goal is to continue slashing so that you can continue to maintain your velocity. This game is fun, it's addictive, and features all of the elements you need to have a decent pick up and play experience. The failure of the Ouya is a strange tale, as not only was this a console that had the most successful Kickstarter campaign in history at the time, but as demonstrated through this video, there were a lot of fun games that could be played on it too. I guess the appeal early on and why the Kickstarter performed so well was because lots of people loved the idea of playing mobile games and future indie games on a simple Android console that could be plugged straight into televisions via an HDMI. Sadly though, the Ouya with its modified 4.1 Jelly Bean iOS lost traction immediately after it was released, with the system's novelty factor not converting into many software sales. As of 2019, the Ouya store has been closed, but thankfully due to passionate fans of the product who gather on forums such as Ouya World, new servers have been opened up, allowing Ouya owners to now experience the entire Ouya library for free. The hardware may have failed and be dead in an official capacity, but there is more reason to own this failed console and dig into its library than ever before, so why not try out this endearing little failure for yourself? If this video sparked joy in your heart, then make sure you subscribe for future videos like this, and check out my video on the Kentucky Fried Console. See you soon.